The billionaire CEO barely glanced up from his phone as he smirked. "I'll have the financial advice with a side of sparkling water." His words dripped with arrogance, each syllable meant to remind the world of his power. Across the table, Christina Matthews froze for just a second, pen hovering above her notepad. After 8 straight hours on her feet at Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, this was exactly the kind of customer she didn't need. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, keeping her tone polite, her expression calm. "I don't believe that's on our menu." Jack Anderson finally looked up, surprised. He had expected the usual timid smile, maybe a nervous laugh. Instead, he found himself staring into a pair of sharp blue eyes that didn't flinch under his gaze. "It was a joke," he said, tapping his platinum card against the table. "But since you mentioned it, where would you invest $1 million in today's market?" Christina blinked. Her colleagues had warned her about him. Jack Anderson, 33 years old, a tech prodigy turned investment mogul worth over $7 billion. Brilliant, ruthless, and dangerously bored. She met his gaze evenly. 40% into emerging market ETFs focused on sustainable energy. 30% into mid-cap value stocks that are undervalued due to market overcorrection. 20% into municipal bonds for the tax advantage. And keep 10% liquid for opportunistic acquisitions. The half-smile froze on Jack's face. For the first time that evening, he put his phone down. "That's surprisingly specific. Did you memorize that somewhere?" "No, sir," she replied coolly. "Just an opinion. Now, about your actual order?" Jack leaned forward, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "Wait. Explain the emerging market rationale." Christina glanced around, noting her other tables calling for attention. "I have customers waiting." "They can wait," he said simply, motioning to the empty chair across from him. "Sit. 5 minutes. I'll make it worth your while. I could lose my job." Jack looked toward the maitre d'. "Pierre, I'm borrowing your waitress for a quick business discussion. Any problem with that?" Pierre nearly tripped over himself. "Of course not, Mr. Anderson. Take all the time you need." Reluctantly, Christina sat down. "This is inappropriate." "So was your investment breakdown," Jack said, leaning forward. "Where did that come from? Finance major?" She adjusted the silverware, eyes steady. "Columbia. NYU. Does it matter?" "You asked a question. I answered. Though clearly, you didn't expect a waitress to have a brain." Jack laughed, the sound genuine this time. "Fair enough. You caught me being an ass. But now you've got my attention. Why emerging markets?" "Because Western markets are oversaturated," she said calmly. "Everyone's chasing the same limited green investments. But developing nations? They have growing energy needs, fewer regulations, and governments desperate for infrastructure funding. That translates to higher returns and lower competition." Jack studied her face. This wasn't just knowledge. It was experience. "Who are you?" he asked softly. "Just a waitress with an interest in finance," she said with a small, unreadable smile. "Now, your order?" He hesitated, then said, "Ribeye. Rare. Truffle mac on the side." "And your name?" "Christina Matthews," she replied. "I'll put that in right away, Mr. Anderson." As she walked away, Jack's gaze lingered longer than he intended. There was something different about her, the poise, the quiet confidence. Most people in his world chased his attention. She seemed determined to avoid it. Pulling out his phone, he opened a secure messaging app. "Need a background check. Christina Matthews. Works at La Belle Époque. Priority." The reply came seconds later, on it. "Preliminary by morning." Jack slipped the phone away as she returned with his drink. "Your food will be out shortly, Mr. Anderson." "Jack," he corrected, a small smile touching his lips. "And thank you, Christina." A flicker of surprise passed over her face before she turned and moved on. Throughout his meal, his attention kept drifting back to her. The grace in her movements. The way she managed a room full of entitled customers without losing composure. When she brought the check, Jack added a $5,000 tip to the $300 bill. Christina's eyes widened. This is excessive. Consider it a consulting fee, Jack said, standing. That advice you gave was better than what I get from half my analysts. I can't accept this. You can, and you will, he replied firmly, though not unkindly. And I'd like to continue our conversation sometime. Professionally. Christina hesitated, then handed back his card and the receipt. I don't think that would be appropriate. Scared, he asked, amused. Cautious, she corrected. There's a difference. Jack smiled, scribbling something on a business card. When you change your mind, call me. I think I might have a proposition for someone with your talents. She took the card reluctantly. If I change my mind. Trust me, Jack said, slipping on his jacket. It's when. Outside, as the city lights reflected off the Maybach's-tinted windows, Jack's phone buzzed again. Preliminary report, Christina Matthews, 25. Community college education. Nothing unusual. He frowned. That couldn't be right. No one gained that kind of insight from a community college class. She was hiding something, and Jack Anderson made billions uncovering what others tried to hide. Home, sir, his driver asked. No, Jack replied, eyes distant. Office. I need to look into something. Meanwhile, in the quiet employee locker room, Christina stared at the business card in her hand. $5,000, the exact amount she needed for next semester's tuition. Coincidence? Or had he somehow known? You okay, Chrissy? Her coworker Mia asked, pulling off her apron. Fine, Christina murmured, slipping the card into her bag. Just a strange customer. That billionaire guy who kept you forever? Mia laughed. What did he want? Financial advice, Christina said dryly. Right, Mia snorted. And I'm an astrophysicist. Guys like that only want one thing. Not this time, Christina whispered, pulling on her coat. See you tomorrow. Outside, the October air was sharp. 5 blocks to the subway, 5 blocks to think. She shouldn't have shown her knowledge. She'd spent 3 years building this quiet, invisible life, and in 5 reckless minutes, she'd risked it all. Her phone buzzed. A message from her roommate, rent due tomorrow. You have your half? Then another notification, an email from NYU. Her heart sank as she opened it. We regret to inform you your request for additional financial aid has been denied. She stopped walking, leaning against a cold brick wall as the world spun around her. Without that aid, she wouldn't make it through the semester. Even the $5,000 wouldn't stretch far enough. For a long moment, she just stood there, staring at Jack's business card. It was dangerous, she knew. Taking help from him could unravel everything she'd worked to hide. And yet, something in her had already decided. She dialed the number. Jack answered on the second ring. That was faster than I expected. Christina took a breath. I'd like to hear about that proposition. Excellent, his voice carried quiet satisfaction. Tomorrow at noon? I have class until 2, then work at 5. Class, he repeated, intrigued. Where? NYU. Part-time MBA. Jack smiled on the other end. Interesting. My office at 3. I'll text you the address. Christina hesitated. And this proposition? Let's just say I could use someone who thinks the way you do. Someone who doesn't follow conventional wisdom. And the pay would make waitressing unnecessary. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. I'll be there at 3, she said finally. But if this is anything inappropriate. It's business, Jack cut in, tone suddenly cool. Whatever else you've heard about me, I don't mix business with pleasure. The call ended. Christina stood on the empty sidewalk, phone still in her hand, the city humming quietly around her. She had no idea whether she'd just made the best decision of her life, or the worst, and love that had grown quietly in the shadows of revenge and redemption. Months later, Elena stood before a glass wall overlooking the Manhattan skyline. The city pulsed with life beneath her, but for the first time in years, she felt peace instead of pressure. The office behind her bore a new nameplate, Wright and Anderson Strategic Partners, their joint venture, born not from greed or vengeance, but from integrity. Jack entered, jacket off, sleeves rolled, that same confident smirk softened now by something more human. They just confirmed it, he said, setting down a folder. Blackwood Financial has filed for bankruptcy. The board voted to dissolve what's left of the company. Elena didn't smile in triumph. She'd imagined this moment for years, the empire that destroyed her collapsing under its own corruption, yet now, all she felt was quiet closure. It's over, she said simply. Jack stepped closer, resting his hands on her shoulders. It's the end of that chapter, he corrected gently, not the story. She turned to face him, warmth in her eyes. Then what's next for us? He grinned. Well, for starters, you owe me dinner. I believe you still haven't properly repaid that financial advice with a side of sparkling water. Elena laughed, the sound light and unguarded. I think I can afford it now. Good, Jack said, threading his fingers through hers. Because this time, I'm ordering dessert and I don't plan on sharing. As they walked out of the office together, the city lights reflected in the glass behind them, a reminder of everything they'd endured and everything they'd built. Elena paused at the door, looking back one last time. For 3 years, she had been a ghost, a name erased, a voice silenced. But tonight, Elena Wright had reclaimed her story. Beside her, Jack squeezed her hand. Ready? She smiled, confident, free, and unafraid. Always. And as they stepped into the night, their reflection in the glass merged into one, no longer the hunter and the hunted, but two equals who had turned survival into strength, truth into justice, and trust into love. The end.